All right. Hello, readers, and welcome back to the She Reads Romance Books podcast. I'm your host, Leslie, lover of romance books and collector of book boyfriends, whose mission is to help you find the best books worth reading because life is better with a love story. And today I've got a very special guest whose new book, Toe to Toe, is going to be one that you are definitely going to want to add to your TBR list. Here to talk about it and more is the one and only Falon Ballard. So, welcome to the show, Falon.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Yay! I am too. This is so exciting because I have read many of your books, including Toe to Toe, which is going to release on March 3rd. So, I'm so grateful that you're here to talk about it with me and for listeners. So, why don't we just dive right in? And to start us off, can you tell listeners what this book is all about?
Yeah, so sort of like the quick and easy pitch is that it is Center Stage meets Magic Mike. It is about a ballerina named Allegra who is getting older in quotes because not old, but like for a ballerina, getting older. And she is still kind of like waiting for her big break. And she has an audition coming up with her ballet company and she decides to hire Cord to help her prepare for this audition. And Cord has basically created and choreographed this very Magic Mike-esque dance troupe. And so he's going to help her prepare for this audition. I feel like we know how things go from there.
Oh, yes, we do. So, the most important question I think of this whole interview is how many times did you watch the Magic Mike movies in preparation for writing it? Be honest.
I mean, probably not as many as I should have, considering I could have gotten away with watching it every day if I really wanted to. Um, I mean, I definitely watched all of them multiple times, but it was seeing the third movie. I saw it in the theaters when it first came out, and there is that dance routine at the end of the third movie where he's like dancing in the rain with the girl, and I was like, oh, this is a book. And so that was really the first spark of this story.
That's awesome. So, it was really that time in the movie, or that you saw that sort of kicked off this whole idea and you just went with it?
Yeah, it was like really just like one of those sort of Kismet timings. I saw the movie, and at the same time, I happened to be listening to this podcast called The Turning Point Room of Mirrors, which was all about George Balanchine, who was basically considered the father of American ballet. And so it was like a really interesting deep dive into his career and his relationships with his ballerinas. And that inspired a lot of Allegra's situation with her director. And so it was this like really just kind of like awesome melding of those two sort of pop culture moments and
Yeah.
came together.
So, are you a dancer too, or are you just sort of wrapped by that world, or it was just happenstance that you listened to that podcast episode?
I mean, I danced a lot when I was a kid. I was never into ballet. I did a lot of like jazz and tap and hip hop. And then I'm a huge musical theater person. So that's where like most of my dance experience comes from. But yeah, it was like one of those weird podcasts where I just like, I heard an ad for it on another podcast that I was listening to. And I was like, oh, that sounds really interesting. And I just love just the arts in general. And, anytime you can kind of do a deep dive into something like that. And it was just the whole thing was fascinating.
And so, is that typical for you, how you come up with the ideas for your books? Because I think I love that about your catalog, that they're all sort of very different stories. So, do you just sort of grab ideas from what you come across in pop culture or other things, or what's sort of your process like for ideas?
Yeah. I mean, I'm definitely the kind of person where I have more ideas than I have time to write. And I'm always kind of like looking for the next thing. But yeah, I'm hugely inspired by pop culture and by the arts in particular. like Change of Heart was really deeply influenced by Schmigadoon, which is this incredible TV series on Apple Plus that I they robbed us of future seasons. They canceled it after only 2 seasons, and it was like my favorite show ever. And yeah, most of my books have at least some sort of inspiration from something I saw or I heard, or I was watching a show or watching a movie, and I just like find myself very inspired by the world around us.
Well, I have to say, and listeners, you should definitely follow Fallon on her Substack because your post on your wrap up from 2025, I was so jealous. I'm like, can I just go hang out with her? I want to go to the movies and see all the shows and all the musical theater shows that she saw. Like the numbers, I was like, dang, that is amazing. So
Yeah.
you must just love all the arts and soaking it all in.
I do. And I'm very lucky that I have the ability to do that. Like, I mean, Broadway has always been like my absolute passion. And I, of course, live in Southern California, so I couldn't be farther away from it. But um, I remember like when I was a kid, I was like, wow, I will really have made it when I can get like season tickets to the local theater. Like I will know I'm like a successful person when that happens. And
Yeah,
I never even thought to really imagine beyond that. And now, for the past couple of years, I have been able to go to New York at least 2 or 3 times a year and see multiple Broadway shows. And it just is like, it's the thing that like keeps me going and fills my cup. And it really truly boosts my creativity like nothing else really does. So now I just pretend that it's all for work.
that's awesome. Well, we'll get back to the book, but what's your favorite musical if you had to pick a top favorite? It
Oh
doesn't have to be
gosh. I
favorite.
mean, well, right now, obviously, it's Moulin Rouge because my romance to see something wicked was very, very heavily inspired by Moulin Rouge. They posted that the show is closing in July, and I am absolutely devastated. Like, I am
Oh, I didn't hear
gutted.
that.
I'm so sad. And I don't think I'm going to get to go back before July and see it for a final time. I didn't know that I was closing the last time I was there. And so I'm just like, I like fully had like a day of mourning when they posted the announcement. I was like, I am not okay. But also on my last trip, I saw Ragtime, which was one of the best things I have ever seen on stage. It just blew my mind. I've been listening to the cast recording just like on a loop because it's so good.
So fun. Oh, one of my favorites. I love Kinky Boots, and it's coming to my local town this summer. I think it is. I have tickets for it. I'm so excited. I can't wait
I
to see
love
it.
that one. That
Oh.
one's so fun.
Well, you kind of mentioned this about the podcast, but in the book, Toe to Toe, you don't really shy away from some of the darker aspects of the ballet world, but yet you don't let it overshadow the story, which I kind of really appreciated. Was that something that you wanted to make sure, like you acknowledged, such as, the rigors of keeping your body in shape and the power dynamics at play, within ballet companies? You kind of pulled it all together.
Thank you. Yeah, I really wanted to be aware of that and sensitive to that. And obviously, that's not something that I have personally experienced for myself. But when I decided I wanted to like take this idea seriously and actually sit down and write it, one of the first things that I did was just read a bunch of memoirs from professional ballerinas. Um, I think the most modern one was Misty Copeland's,
Mhm.
who's is fantastic, of course. But I also went back and read some of the older, kind of like founding big names in ballet in America. And across the board, it is in every single one of their stories the pressure to maintain your body, the sort of transactional way I think that your weight and your appearance is really sort of looked at as you are a ballerina, that this is just part of your job, and so you kind of have to suck it up and deal with it. And of course there is a disgusting history of sexual harassment and abuse and assault in the ballet industry. So it wouldn't have been I think, authentic to leave any of that out. And even though Allegra herself is, I think, in a better place in terms of her eating habits and her weight than, many ballerinas have been in the past. And I do think
Mhm.
that there has been a lot of progress as far as that goes, especially just knowing now a lot of the health risks and the terrible outcomes that can come from that. Um, it still is like, I don't think it is realistic to have somebody who is in any sort of professional field like that not have that be something that they think about and consider. So, um, those are tough things to include, but I think that they were necessary to tell her story.
Yes. And like I said, so well done. I thought you did such a great job, and you could tell you did your research on it. But I love how the main part of the story is that Allegra realizes she needs help up in her sex appeal if she wants to get this new role that she really wants. And so, who better to teach her than Cord, who she sees in this live performance? So, she's a super smart girl for approaching him. And I say this a lot on the podcast and in my Substack that I adore the relationship trope or coach trope that I mentioned, or in here, the sexiness coach trope. I just loved that aspect about this book so much, and the lessons that Cord orchestrates for her were perfect. I mean, how you like stepped them up, I was just like, wow, this was so good. And I'm like, what's it going to be next? So, do you love that trope as much as I do, either reading it or writing it? Tell me all the things.
I do. I just think it is so fun. I mean, to me, my favorite sort of like overarching trope is forced proximity. And I think you could make an argument that every romance has to have forced proximity in some way,
Yeah.
shape, or form. And I like my forced proximity to be like really forced and really proximate. Like I want them together all the time and all up in each other's business. And I think that the lessons are like such a great way to do that because obviously on the surface, these are two people that would not interact in their daily lives. They, don't have a ton in common other than the dancing. And so kind of using that as the jumping off point for their relationship was super fun. And then it was fun to get to come up with these ideas of like how how would he, teach somebody this and trying to find ways that weren't just about the physicality of it. It was for Allegra, it goes a lot deeper than that. It's not just about, oh, I can do these moves. It's like you have to have that confidence and you have to feel it in your body. And so that was I think for her the hardest part was you
Right.
know the interior stuff.
Was it fun or did you have a hard time like coming up with all of them? Because I feel like you graduated each one like so well in terms of what you selected. I won't give spoilers as to what they were, but readers are just gonna have to like dive in to know they were amazing.
Yeah, I don't think I really struggled coming up with the ideas. I do think I added in like one or two kind of like smaller things in my first round of edits. Like my editor was like, I want like one or two more times for them to kind of like go through this whole process together.
Yeah.
Which then that was actually fun because it was like, oh, I had other ideas that I couldn't really work into that first draft. So then I got to go back and revisit some of those. And it was just cool to like, that's like not something that I would ever do. And so those are the most fun things to write is when you get to just like totally escape your own life and your own reality and do something kind of off the wall.
Yes. And even as a reader, same thing. Like some of those things I'd be like, oh my gosh, but I'm like, but that would be kind of cool. And that makes
Yeah.
sense. And I'm like, wow, maybe I want to do that. I'm
Yeah.
thinking of a certain one, you probably know. But anyway, great. I love that. And I think readers put it on your TBR because that was so fantastic about this book. But Cord, he is obviously the hero of this story. What do you love most about him, and why will he be readers' next favorite book boyfriend?
Oh my gosh. I love him so much. And I had so much fun writing him. And then in the first draft of this book, it was actually single POV. It was all from Allegra's POV. And then I got my editor's letter, and it was like everything that she was kind of like, oh, we should work on this, this, and this. I was like, oh, he needs his own chapters. And I was like, this is going to fix everything that is wrong with the book. And so then I got to go back and I got to really dive into who Cord is. And I just had a blast with him. I love his relationship with the other dancers in his show. I love his relationship with his sister. They're twins. So obviously they have like a very close relationship. Um, and I loved the sort of care that he takes with Allegra. He, I think, understands that he is in the position of power in their dynamic in a lot of ways. And I think he's very careful and aware of that.
Yes.
Um, a lot due to his own history and his own experiences. And I just love, I can't seem to write anything other than a gooey centered hero. And I figured I'm gonna just lean into that. That's just gonna be
Yeah.
the thing from here on out. And he definitely has a gooey center. And he's super hot and
Uh,
has a six pack and a fabulous apartment in New York. So like what more do we need?
What more? What more? In their first scene together, I loved it because, of course, he's going to give her this epic lap dance to Pony. And I was just like, yes, please. But then to your point, I was like, yes, he was so upfront about this consent before that, even being like, I'm going to touch you, I'm going to put your hands on me. And I was just like, okay, you've totally won me over. I love you. You're the best.
We love him.
We do. Because I mean, he's smart. He's a great businessman, right? He's super sexy, great brother, as you said. And he knows what Allegra's life is like in the ballet. But it's also totally hard for him to fully support her for reasons people will discover in the story, which I
Yeah.
thought brought a very unique side to him as well, as this full person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, it was cool. I don't often write from the male point of view. And so he was a really interesting one to kind of get into his brain and figure out how he was thinking.
Yeah. Well, and I loved Allegra. So she's obviously the heroine of our story. Her mother was harsh, yes, but she also at the same time didn't let people really walk all over her. She was
Mhm.
determined, to meet her career goals, which I loved. What did you love most about writing her, and why will readers love her just as much?
Yeah, I think the thing that resonates with me personally the most about Allegra is this fierce determination that she has. And she knows and has always known what she wants her life to look like. And she isn't really going to settle for anything other than that. But at the same time, I think throughout the course of the book, she develops a little bit of a flexibility and a realization that, as much as we want to, us type A folks, plan everything out to the last detail, you can't plan for some things in life, and you're going to miss out if you don't give yourself the space to enjoy these surprises that kind of come your way. And so I liked having that growth from her was really fun to write. But yeah, I think that we definitely share that in common of this is the goal, and I will do whatever it takes to achieve it. And sometimes that can be to your own detriment. Sometimes you got to pull back a little bit. She knows what she wants, and I love writing female characters who are really strong in their own sort of sense of self like that, and really know what they want and are going to go for it.
Yeah. And often sometimes authors can change them along the way, but you never did, which is what I really appreciated. I'm like, no, she had this in mind and she wasn't going to let something, she can be flexible, like you said, but this is her goal and she was sticking to it. And that was
Yeah.
fantastic. Um, But talking about process, so you come up with an idea for a book. What typically then happens next for you? Like, what is your writing process like? Because I'm always in awe of how authors go from idea to then words on the page.
I'm always shocked when it actually happens too. Um, but for me, it's like I get that little spark, and that usually is some sort of concept. Like that's typically how it comes to me. Like, oh, ballerina and Magic Mike dancer. Like that's the first thing in my head. And then typically my characters come to be next. So I just start kind of like thinking about, and I don't really do a lot of like I don't take a lot of notes in the early stages. I really just kind of like let my brain start cooking and start marinating and kind of figuring out like, okay, well, what's the ballerina's backstory? And, what does she want in this moment in time? And what is holding her back from getting that? And a lot of times I see particular scenes kind of like play out in my head like I'm watching a little movie in my
Mm,
brain. And
mhm.
then once I start like hearing their voices, that's usually when I know I'm like, okay, I need to sit down and actually start writing. But I do not typically plot anything in advance. Um, I think my editor would like me to do more of that. And every time I'm like, nope, not happening. Um, I usually know some sort of conflict that is going to happen at the end. But I hate conflict and I hate plot. So sometimes I don't, and I just kind of go with it. I obviously know they're going to end up together. But other than that, I usually just kind of sit down and see what happens. And I do a lot of layering as I like, I'll write a first draft and then I'll go back. And now that I know the characters after writing the first draft of the book, I layer in a lot of details and backstory and experiences about them. And usually that helps me figure out what that last conflict is going to be once I know who the two
That's
characters are.
Wow, that's amazing. It must be very freeing to just go in. But part of my type A brain is like, oh my gosh, but you don't know where. But I think that's incredible. And that's why I'm not a writer and you are, and you're amazing at it. So.
Thank you. Yeah, it's kind of like I really had to let my process just be what it is because I think there is a lot of pressure to try and fit into like, oh, you have to have this outline and you have to be so organized and you have to like know who these people are front and back and know their sign and their favorite sandwich and anything before you can write their story. And it's like that doesn't work for me. And early on I did always try to like write an outline and it hindered me more than it helped me because it just made me feel like very stifled and like tied into a certain direction. I used to like listen to authors talk and they would always say like, oh yeah, I tried to get my character to do this and they decided not to. And I was like, what do you mean? You're the boss. And then I started writing and I was like, oh, I'm not the boss at all. So, if the character is like kind of like fighting against what I think is going to happen next, that probably means that it's not the right thing. And I kind of just have to like go where that is leading me.
Right. So after you've done all of your layering, now the book's about to come out, like looking back on it, do you have like a favorite scene that either meant the most to you or was easiest to write, or you just really love how it turned out?
I have a lot in this one, honestly, which is unusual at this point in time for me to have like very mushy feelings about it. Like normally I need like a little bit of space and a little bit of distance before I'm like, oh, I love this one. But this one was it was so fun to write this book. I had such a blast with it. And I was really surprised because I loved writing the dance scenes and I thought that was going to be the worst part. And in a lot of ways, it was really challenging because it's like, how do you take something that you can like see in your mind, this movement, and get that across on the page? So it was really challenging to figure out how to do that. But it was also so fun because I just got to picture these dance routines and like how I wanted it to look in my head. And then hopefully transfer that onto the page. So that was really cool. So anytime they're actually dancing together is that was a highlight for me.
Nice. And then, so they're together on the cover. Do you have any input on your cover? Because I thought it was a really great one for this book.
For my rom-coms, I have basically zero. but but that's okay because they always turn out amazing. So usually they'll ask me like, do you have like a character reference? And sometimes I'm just like, she's blonde. Like, that's what we got. And sometimes I send them something a little bit more specific. But all my rom-coms have the same cover designer and they're absolutely beautiful. And they literally just show up in my inbox, like full color, everything is done, and they just look so amazing and beautiful. And I'm just like, thumbs up, love it, great.
Nice. That must feel really good. Yeah. So is this, well, let me see. Is this your seventh book? Do I have that right? So,
Yes, yeah.
oh my gosh, that's incredible. But if you can, take me back to the beginning where maybe you still are, or I know you were a wedding coordinator. So how'd you go
Yeah,
from wedding coordinator to romance author? And yeah,
yeah. I mean, truly the career paths didn't really have much to do with each other. It just sort of happened to be a perfect match, so to speak. But originally I was an English teacher. So I taught English for 8 years. And I started doing weddings um, pretty much right away once I was teaching because I wasn't making enough money as a teacher. And so I needed another job. But also then for the most part, I was working during the summer. Like that was like the bulk of my wedding work at that point in time. Um, and I started doing weddings because I was a stage manager when I worked in theater. And so there's a pretty much the same job. So that was like a very natural transition. And then I had my son and I was like, you know what? I can work for myself. If I'm just doing weddings. So I quit teaching and was really just doing the weddings, which gave me like so much flexibility. And it was the best job to have with a young kid because my husband, had a regular 9 to 5. So it was like we kind of offset our schedules and that was like the best thing I could have done when he was little. Um, and then I found like once I wasn't teaching anymore, I really wanted to get into writing. I was always a writer as a kid, and my degrees in creative writing and teaching just took up the bulk of my energy. And so I didn't really have a lot of extra time. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna write something. And romance has just always been the thing that I've gravitated towards. And so that was just kind of a natural fit. But it was really interesting being a wedding planner and writing romance. And people always ask, like, oh, did you take stories from your couples and things like that? And I definitely never did that. But I think what was so interesting was that I had this sort of like front row seat to watching how couples communicate with each other, which was just endlessly fascinating, especially around weddings, which are, of course, like a very emotional and sometimes stressful situation, and seeing how couples dealt with their problems, how they talked about things, how they dealt with their family members. And, all of that was just like, even though I wasn't like sitting there like taking notes,
yeah,
and sort of like writing it all out. Like, I think that really impacted how I would write my stories because I was just like getting all of this real world, like right in front of me experience, which was very cool. And everybody also asks if I will ever write a wedding planner book. And I'm like, I don't think I can. Like, I think it would be too much for me.
understandable.
I need a little distance.
Yes, I got it. I get that. Yeah. But you wrote about an author, which I thought was cool,
That is true.
which was your great forced proximity romance. But
Yes, gotta have that.
it's funny, my daughter is considering a degree in creative writing, which you just said you have. Like, what was that education like? Was it helpful to you or just a really fun experience in general?
I mean, I think that fully depends on like what you want to write. I often joking, but not really, say that I am a writer in spite of my creative writing degree, not because of it. I found my creative writing program to be very typical of the publishing industry in that if you were not writing highbrow lit fic, you
Mm,
were worthless. um, and there really wasn't a lot of support for any genre of fiction, but romance, of course, in particular, was, I mean, I just like consistently got feedback from my professors that was just like very demeaning and condescending and, you know,
wow.
not super, super helpful. I mean, and then I graduated from college and then went right into teaching. So, some some helpful advice and some support might have, kind of changed that for me. And I took a long time in between graduating from college and actually sitting down to write, like almost 10 years. So, um, that part wasn't great, but it was a good
Sure.
primer for what to expect when you decide that you're going to be a romance author.
Yes, because I'm sure the whole publishing world and what that is like behind the scenes that readers have no idea is a very different picture than we can even probably imagine.
Yes, it's getting better, but still not great.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm looking at all your ears in the back. You're a Disneyland fanatic too. Oh my gosh, you have such a
Yes.
good collection. It's
Thank
on
you.
my
This is,
bucket list to go. I have not been to, I've been to Disney World several times, but Disneyland is on my list. So if I go,
yeah.
what's like the ride in Disneyland that I need to hit?
I mean, to me, the classic, the go-to, the one that I always gravitate towards is Pirates of the Caribbean. I just feel like that the magic of that ride, and it's one of those that, has been around my whole life. So, I remember writing it as a kid, and I remember loving it when I was a kid. And I remember when my kid got to go on it for the first time, and so that one has like a lot of nostalgia. Um but I mean, I think if you are like humming from Disney World, there's so much at Disneyland that doesn't exist in Disney World, so those are
Mhm.
like, you got to ride the Matterhorn and you got to do the ones that you don't have over there.
Yes, absolutely. It's hopefully soon. I don't know, it'll be not this year, but hopefully soon. It's on my list, like I said. Ah.
Gotta
Now,
have
as a
it.
writer, do you have time to be a reader as well? And do you only read romance or what's your reading life like?
Yeah, I mean, I am a pretty voracious reader. I still read about like 15 to 20 books a month. That is kind of like my usual. Of course, a lot of that is like I read books that I have to blurb, or like if I'm doing events with people, then I want to, make sure that I've read their books. So a lot of it is work, quote
Yeah.
unquote. I'm like, oh, I have to spend my day reading today because it's for work.
Yeah.
Um, which is truly the best thing that has ever happened to me. And I mostly do at this point read romance, but I do dabble in other genres occasionally. Right now, I am really, really buckling down because we are moving in a couple of months. And so I was like, okay, I have got to get my physical TBR under control. Like, I cannot justify packing up all of these books that I have not read and moving them to a whole new location. Like, it's time, we're going to do this. So I went from I started, I think in November or December, I had about 100 books on my physical TBR, just
Wow.
ridiculous. Also, not all my
Amazing.
fault
Yeah.
because sometimes they just like show up at my house
Yep.
and, I'm not buying all of them, but I did buy a lot of them. Um, and I think I've got like about 40 left. So I'm like, okay,
Impressive.
we're going through. I am not being shy with the DNFs. I'm just like, we gotta get through this. Also, a lot of them at this point are like 6, 7 years old because they've just been sitting on this cart for years.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I'm finally getting to read this book that everyone else read a decade ago. So right now it's a little bit of a mixed bag. I'm reading whatever I bought all those years ago as I get down to the bottom of the file.
Wow, that is a good, I mean, moving will do that to you. I can, yeah, understand. No more
Yeah,
boxes. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
gotta
That's
buckle
crazy.
down.
Is there, I'm curious because I have one, but is there a book that you can remember that you read, or it doesn't have to be the first one, but that's like, this is what made me love romance? Um,
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like came to romance via the early 2000s like chick lit pipeline. Like that was really my sort of introduction, and then chick lit sort of just like died out and stopped becoming a thing. And then I was like, oh, actually, here's this whole section of exactly what I'm looking for. And I really just like read everything. I read a ton of historicals. Um, Christina Lauren books were like very, very high on the list of those first ones that like really kind of drew me in. Um, and actually, the one that like really stands out to me is I read Lindsay Kelp's I Heart Hollywood, I Heart New York, that whole series.
uh,
And now Lindsay is a friend of mine, which like blows my mind every time I talk to her. I'm like, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for you. And
that's
she's like, that book
awesome.
isn't even good. What are you talking about? I'm like, I'm like, yes, it is. But that was like one of the first ones that I read as a potential writer. And I was like, oh, I want to make people feel like this. That's what I want. And that really clicked something in my brain for me.
That's awesome. Nice. Oh, well, Toe to Toe releases March 3rd. Everybody needs to
March
order it.
10th. March
5th?
10th.
Oh,
10th.
10th. I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
keep saying 3rd. Thank you for correcting me. March 10th. Although people can order it in advance, March 3rd,
Yeah.
order it. Click.
Yes.
So anything that we have left out to talk, what else, anything else you want readers to know about the book besides March
Um,
10th?
March 10th. Yeah, and I have some really fun release events if you're in the Southern California area. So those will get posted on my Instagram. On March 10th, I'm doing one at Heartbound in Anaheim, which is where I live. And my conversation partner is going to be my husband, which
Oh,
I'm
that's awesome.
super excited about. He is not a reader in any way, shape, or form. So he's like, I've been reading toe to toe. And he's like, I'm taking notes. And
That's
I'm
so
like,
great.
love this for you. I think we're just going to have so much fun. But he really, whether he knows it or not, he plays a role in my writing process. So I think it's going to be interesting for the two of us to have a conversation together. And then March 21st at In Bloom in Temecula, we are going to do our, sort of like normal book talk and signing. And then we're going to watch Center Stage. So I'm
Wow.
so excited.
Oh my God, that's such a great idea. I love that. Oh, so fun. And I don't want to push this new release off too soon, but then what do readers have to look forward to next, if you don't mind?
Yeah, a lot, as usual for me. Yeah, so then my second romantasy is going to come out hopefully later this year. We don't have a set release date yet, but that one is called What Light Breaks. It is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. So it's in the same world as Something Wicked, but it is a different couple. So we're going to kind of go on a new journey with them. And I've seen the cover for that one, and it is absolutely stunning. Like I didn't think we could top Something Wicked, and then I was like, oh, this might even be better. And then I have another rom-com that I'm working on that'll come out early next year, that we haven't really released much information about yet, but I am doing edits on that one right now and I'm having a blast. So another
Right.
fun one to look forward to. And then, we'll see what happens after that.
Yeah, then we'll see. Oh my gosh, but glad more is coming down the pike. That's awesome. Yay. Well, congrats early already for March 10th, Toe to Toe releasing. I love this book. I think readers are
Thank
going to
you.
really love Cord and Allegra, the whole entire story. I really enjoyed it. So thank you for, giving me another fun book to read. I truly did enjoy it. So, and this was a
Thank you.
blast
That
working with
means a
you.
lot. Yeah, and thanks for chatting. I mean, I love getting to talk about books, obviously. So always a good day.
Awesome.